You're watching Gamescom 2024 right here on IGN. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle takes one of the most iconic movie heroes of all time and gives him his own globe-trotting video game adventure.
Here to tell us all about it are Axel, Torvenius and Jens Andersson from Machine Games. Hey guys, welcome.
Hello. Hey, thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us.
So, comedy is a really important part of the Indiana Jones movies. Comedic timing in video games is not necessarily the easiest thing to nail. How did you guys manage to work that into the Great Circle?
There are several different ways how we try to implement that component, because as you say, it's a truly key beat to hit the tone of Indiana Jones and making sure that it has the correct vibe. It's also super important for us that it doesn't become comedy.
Right.
So it needs to just have the right amount of it to feel right. And there are several parts to it. One is, of course, within the narrative, how things are written in terms of cutscenes and dialogue and VO. And then performance by Troy Baker to make sure that that is delivered. But we also communicate that component in the smallest detail. It can be in the minute-to-minute gameplay, in hand-to-hand combat, in subtle animation, a lot of different small components that all together comes together balanced, and then the feel of that comedy is there.
Yeah, it's all about finding that tone, right? Finding a banjo in the world that you can smack people with, or things like that.
At the same time as the comedy, some of the most iconic, most memorable moments from the classic Indiana Jones films are really horrifying, really scary, some of the most memorable moments in cinema, in fact. How do you approach horror in your game?
It's been a balance, to say, for sure, because we are really focusing on making sure that adventure comes first. But as you say, there's a sense of horror in there as well. So we've been trying to get moments throughout gameplay where it becomes a little bit creepier, it becomes a little bit eerie, and the game pauses a bit, slow down. But finding that balance between, the cinematic big beats, set pieces, and then the horror components, that has been a tricky balance. But I think we're on a very good spot at the moment with hitting the balance right.
Did you find that you were sort of taking inspiration from elements from each of the films? Were there things in all of them where you said, we want a little bit of this from Temple of Doom, we want a little bit of this from Raiders?
Primarily, the main reference is Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that's the one we've been dissecting the most. But all three early movies are important reference to us.
I noticed the boulder from Raiders is back. Is this thing just stalking him for his entire life? How did that ball return?
I don't know what we're saying about that, actually.
Well, there's more of that to see when the game is out. So we have a little tease of it, but there are some familiar aspects in the game for sure.
All right. From some of the levels we've seen so far, some of them look really quite open. Are there numerous ways to complete your objectives? Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The game in its whole is a mix between more linear section and more open-ended big areas. And in those open-ended areas, you can absolutely choose what missions to tackle, and there are also multiple ways to do that. We have a lot of different options in terms of stealth, hand-to-hand combat, even gun combat, traversing around using your whip. So we try to give the player agency to allow, what would Indy do here, and let you role play almost as Indiana Jones and try to accomplish the mission as you see fit.
Right.
Does that sort of speak to the larger philosophy of replaying the game and stuff like that, giving people the option of going back in a second time and maybe going, hey, I'm going to go this one a little more guns blazing or a little more stealth?
Well, actually for this game, because it's so open-ended, we're thinking about replayability a little bit different than, for example, the Wolfenstein titles. In this game, we allow you to go back and revisit previous areas to really explore all the content there is there and to 100% the game. And we have the journal, which is a key tool for this game that basically it starts blank and you fill it out with your whole journey, your whole adventure goes in there, every photo that you take, every note that you find, and the idea is that when that's fully complete, that's when you've 100% of the game and see everything that game has to offer.
So when you say revisit areas, do you mean like travel back to an area or more like a chapter select?
It's more like a chapter select. There's a tweak to it. We allow you to bring back any abilities or equipment that you have unlocked. So it's kind of it's a narrative break in some ways, but it's really good for being able to explore and exhaust everything that there is into the game.
Oh no, go for it.
The game is at point very big, so there is plenty of opportunities for exploration, and that's something we constantly try to push the player to indulge in. And as you go along, you will find, oh, there are things that I maybe missed, there are things that I want to revisit, there are things that I want to explore more.
And it's really important as well because we leave a lot of content here as optional. Like the story is really, really important, and for the people who just want to explore that, the game is going to be shorter. But for the people who want to experience everything, there's a lot of things to explore, and it's a really big game.
You mentioned the sort of like unlocking abilities. I want to kind of tug on that a little bit because that sounds really cool to me. Indiana Jones is like, he's sort of the same guy through all of the movies, but in a video game that would get boring after a while. So tell me about these, like how he's learning more and adapting and learning new moves and stuff.
So throughout the game, you will find these adventure books. These are books that are in the world, like interesting books that each one of them contain an ability, and you can unlock that ability using adventure points. And adventure points is something you find by exploration, by completing mysteries and missions and finding these notes and filling out your journal. So it's almost like kind of a skill system, skill tree.
Awesome. Well, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle looks amazing. You guys announced a release date the other day, December 7th?
December 9th.
9th. I was trying to get there 2 days early. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you.
That segment went so well, I think it belongs in a museum. Thank you all so much for joining us. We can't wait for this game.
Stick around because we've got lots more Gamescom coverage ahead right here on IGN.